Hello, beautiful people. How are you doing? The dockets are docketing this morning. So, just since I scheduled this live about 45 minutes ago, we have a separate Drake docket update. And we will get to that. Hello, beautiful people. How you doing? It is good to see you. Good to be seen by you. Hit the like button, share the live. Shout out to all the members, the subscribers, the supporters, the Docket Fund supporters, and all of the places. They are the executive producers of this channel, and they are exactly the reason why we are here this morning. Okay? Yay. Shout out to all of you. Shout out to all the new people. Hello. Shout out to all the silent looters who don't chat, but you be here. You could give a little hand wave. If you're new, you could say where you're watching from. We'd like to know where in the world you are. I'm in Seattle, so it's 10:07 a.m. here, and it's warm. I went to the store quite early this morning, bebopping my way along, and it was quite warm pretty early this morning. So we're in for one today. I hope you're beating the heat wherever you are, baby, because it's brutal on the planet. It's brutal on the planet. Okay. If you are chatting, make sure you change your chat settings from top chat to live chat so you can catch all the goodnessness. 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 Goodness. Good. Yeah. Okay. So you can catch all the goodness. I'm okay. I'm okay. Going down in the chat. Thank you to everybody for helping to get our little goal started. Appreciate you. We got a little chat. Hey, Miss Hummus, how you doing? Tiffany Shantae, Amen Dead, Che E, Beautiful Leo, hello. BX Finest, Angie the Lady, congratulations again on your promotion at work. And your raise. We love that. Flows fast. E. Kosher, how you doing? King Kel, hello, beautiful. Liam Kenny, K Sharp, Hugo, Nona, Belize, Janice. If you only knew, child, if you only knew. Afro Butterfly, hello. Chalk 575 from Pittsburgh, hello. Good to see you. We're getting biblical deluges of heat, child. It's not. 80 at most, blissfully cool. It's so sad. That's so sad that 80 at most is blissfully cool. Yenny Gold, how you doing? Jamie, hello. Kyrie, hello. Good to see you all. Lil 40, how you doing? Ciodra, thank you very much for the support. Tiffy 2004, how you doing? Somebody's mama. How you doing? In Texas, about to pop some tacos. I know that's right. It's Taco Tuesday every day. Shout out to everybody who's watching. Hit the like button, share the live. We have some updates. Okay, here is the order of our agenda this morning. When I set up this live 45 minutes ago, I had an update for you on Drake's appeal for his lawsuit against UMG because he's a little banned. He got his little feels hurt. He's suing over Not Like Us being published and promoted and spun billions of times. He's very upset about that. But since then, we have gotten an update on one of the gambling lawsuits against Sweepstakes, Stake, Drake, Aiden, and George Nguyen. So we're going to start with that. Then we'll move into UMG. Then we'll move into Comey's latest bing bop boom against the government. He's filed a flurry of things and exhibits on the docket. And if you were here the other day, very early in the morning, okay, child, we started live at 6:45 in the morning so that I could read you a document to explain to you how it is that the government tried to pull in a mob hitman to implicate James Comey. And then James Comey used said mob hitman to humiliate the government. It was wild. And I'm still thinking about it. And now we have another motion to dismiss, and that was to quash some warrants and get some hearings to get some evidence thrown out that the government looks like they just straight up lied to get. Child, it's wild. But yeah, since then he's filed another motion to dismiss for vindictive prosecution. So we're gonna look at that. That'll be the last thing that we do. Okay. I know what you're here for. I know what you want. Okay. I'm gonna give you what you want. Some of you can go on about your day, and the real ones will stay for the good James Comey document. All right. So let us begin. All right. We begin in the Eastern District of Virginia in an attempted class action complaint filed by two women against Sweepstakes stake Drake, Aiden, and George Nguyen. This is one of the very first attempts at a class action where we saw quite clearly a straightforward allegation. Defendants Drake, Ross, and Nguyen have also made use of Stake, including through its U.S. storefront, stake.us, to directly transfer money between and among themselves using Stake's tipping program, an unlimited and wholly unregulated money transmitter that appears to exist outside the oversight of any financial regulator. Defendants have utilized Stake's tipping program to transfer gambling proceeds wagered through or on the stake platform. In addition, through Stake's tipping function, defendants have financed their combined artificial streaming, in parentheses, botting, to create fraudulent streams of Drake's music, fabricate popularity, disparage competitors and music label executives, distort recommendation algorithms, and distribute financing for all of the foregoing while concealing the flow of funds. So we've heard this one several times, but this was one of the very first. And we reread that here originally and we gasped. We gasped. I think I choked on air. At the heart of this scheme, Drake, acting directly and through willing and knowledgeable co-conspirators, has deployed automated bots and streaming farms to artificially inflate play counts of his music across major platforms such as Spotify. These inauthentic streams, injected via interstate digital pathways, were calibrated to mislead royalty and recommendation engines, manufacture popularity, distort playlists and charts, and divert both value and audience attention. In tandem, this manipulation has suppressed authentic artists and narrowed consumers' access to legitimate content by undermining the integrity of curated experiences. So, that is this lawsuit out of the Eastern District of Virginia. And this was an attempt to file a class action against all of these defendants. We have an update. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to break down the order. For the reasons stated in the accompanying memorandum and opinion, defendant Sweepstakes LTDs, also known as Stakes, motion to compel arbitration and stay the proceedings is granted. Stakes motion to dismiss plaintiff's first amended complaint is denied as moot, and defendant Kick Streaming's motion to dismiss plaintiff's second amended complaint, Stake's motion to strike the unauthorized amendments in plaintiff's second amended complaint, or in the alternative, compel arbitration or dismiss plaintiff's second amended complaint, and Kick and Stake's motion to deny class certification and strike class allegations in plaintiff's second amended complaint are stayed until the arbitration proceeding is complete. And it is hereby ordered that plaintiffs and Stake promptly begin the arbitration process as required under the arbitration agreement contained in stake's terms, and it is further ordered that plaintiffs and stake file a status report concerning the status of arbitration within 120 days of the date of this order and file updated reports every 90 days thereafter. And it is further ordered that this civil action be and is stayed pending the conclusion of arbitration. Hearings for a bunch of these things are canceled because they are stayed. So, what does all of this mean? Well, unequivocally, this is a massive win for Stake, Sweepstakes, Drake, Aiden Ross, and Mr. Nguyen. Massive win for them because what this means is they get to take this case to arbitration with just the two plaintiffs, not a class of plaintiffs. So they get to go into arbitration to settle these two people's issues, okay? And their issues, what they are alleging is that just like every other gambling lawsuit that we've read, is that uh sweepstakes is operating illegally in the United States of America. That they are really they're not entertainment, they are gambling. They have a bunch of, things therein. So, um this is a massive win for them that they avoid a class and, they get to take this into arbitration. Only after arbitration is completed will, uh, the court then consider, uh, Kick's motion to dismiss the second amended complaint because they amended their complaint, so it's called the second amended complaint. And then stakes motions to strike unauthorized amendments in plaintiff's second amended complaint means that they are alleging that when plaintiffs changed their lawsuit, they changed some things inside that lawsuit without authorization. Uh, and then, of course, they have a motion to either compel arbitration or dismiss plaintiff's second complaint, deny or stay the class certification, and then strike all of this, from the court record because they say there shouldn't be a court record of any of this because none of their cases go to court, they all go to arbitration, and it would appear that they won that round on this one. So this is a massive win, um, again, for everybody who has been named in this lawsuit, they avoid a lot, namely discovery, and so I'll just say that I'm completely disappointed, and it doesn't have anything to do with Drake or botting or, I want them to get him. I believe that Stake is running an illegally an illegal gambling enterprise in the United States of America, and that it is preying on people in the United States of America. So, I'm disappointed on that tip because I would love to see a one of these complaints actually rise to a class action lawsuit. And there are plenty of people in various places across the country that are trying, but they have not been successful yet. So, big win for Drake and his alleged cronies on one of the gambling related lawsuits out of Virginia. And, we continue to see what happens with the rest of them. There's one in Missouri that has stayed right now pending the outcome of yet another, or some decisions, I should say, some court rulings in yet another case. So it just goes on and on and on. Okay. Yeah. And I don't think that this was one of the lawsuits that actually argued. I could be wrong because there's so many of them, but I don't think that it was. I don't think that this is one of the lawsuits that argued that the arbitration clause is part of the scheme. But basically, once of these, I think the first one was filed on the last day of last year, December 31st. So we woke up, January 1, Drake being sued. And then there's been a succession of lawsuits filed by different plaintiffs around the country. And you can tell that they're all building off of each other, right? They're all building off of and incorporating what other lawsuits allege. They're addressing potential, rulings that have happened. And so we've definitely read at least one lawsuit that was later in the series of events where they directly allege that the arbitration clause is a part of the illegal gambling scheme. So that one I'm highly interested in to see if they can meet that bar of convincing a court that you should not grant arbitration because that's part of the scheme. So we'll see what happens. But until then, another case stayed for one reason or another. Thank you. It was quite accidental, but we're going with it. That was pretty much what I came to was, okay. And then I walked out of the mirror. So that is where we are with the update on the gambling lawsuit out of the Eastern District of Virginia against Drake, Stake, Aiden, and Mr. Nguyen. That brings us to Drake v. UMG. So the other day I got a notification that caught my attention. It's number 81 there at the bottom. New case manager. And I said, okay, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Usually seeing a new case manager is, proximal to something else coming onto the docket. And I think over the next couple days, there will be a few things that come onto the docket. But yes, on the 24th, they got a new case manager. The case manager is the person that manages all the things related to the case and updates the docket. Okay. And then today, ding, 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 case calendaring for the week of 11/09/2026 proposed. So what does this mean? Well, some time ago, okay, per the case calendar, the parties were required to submit dates that they are available for oral arguments on the motion to dismiss. So there are two things right now that are outstanding, okay, with regards to Drake's appeal. Number one is oral arguments, and number two is a special certification that Drake has asked for. He wants a part of his case to be carved out, okay? Because remember, Drake sued in New York. I can't remember if it was Eastern or Southern, but Drake sued UMG in New York. Therefore, New York laws apply, okay? He wants one of the issues in his appeal that arguably is already settled law in New York to get carved out and sent back to the Superior Court of New York for judges to determine whether or not they want to reevaluate what they have already established. That could cause a delay of up to a year overall in his appeal process. But he has to have permission from the appellate court to get that certification. So I would imagine now that there is a new case manager and things are starting to get calendared, that we're going to see some movement on whether or not he is going to get that certification and they're going to carve that out. And we shouldn't read one way or another into whether he is or is not going to get that carve out by them putting a proposed date of oral arguments on the calendar. So the way that this works is, and quite honestly, I have it buried somewhere. This was months ago that both parties submitted their dates. And so I don't even know where it is. And I decided not to look for it because it doesn't matter. There's going to be another update on this docket. Okay. Because both parties have got this notification from the court, okay? And more detail than what we can just see here. But case calendaring for the week of 11/09/2026 for oral arguments, that goes to both the parties. They will probably confer so that they can respond to the court and say, "We are or are not available," right? For oral arguments at that time, and, if they're not available, why? Vacation typically isn't a good reason. In court for something else on a different case is typically a good reason of why they would not be available. So, we know that, again, it's proposed that, they will have oral arguments, and I would imagine in the next couple days, we will get an update from the lawyers on whether or not that is going to be the week of oral arguments. As a reminder, okay, Drake filed his notice of appeal October of last year. I told you all this would take at bare minimum a year to get to oral arguments. So he noticed the court shortly after his case was thrown out, October of last year, that he would be, filing an appeal. That starts the whole process. It was in, I believe, January of this year that he filed his brief. We read that. UMG filed a bunch of stuff. We read those as well. And then again, they get into their, this is when we're available kind of thing. I'm kind of scrolling the docket to see if they included. Oh, I do see something on unavailability. I'm just looking to see if I can quickly find when both parties said that they were available. So that's what's happening finally on Drake v. UMG. We are getting closer to oral arguments being scheduled. After oral arguments, and I believe this will be a panel of 3 judges. After oral arguments, if you're wondering, how long does it take? Okay, how long does it take? When we were in federal, district court on this case, we had oral arguments on the motion to dismiss. I believe we're on June 30th, 2025, and then the case was dismissed on or about October 9th, 2025. So that lets you know for just the lower court, right, under appeals, June 30th was oral arguments. Judge laid down her decision October 9th. It has to be written, it has to be, there's a bunch of stuff. And then judges are busy. They have full dockets. Okay. Now we're talking about the appeals court. We're looking at anywhere from 3 months to a year, if not more, for them from the time they get the oral arguments to the time that they actually render their decision. Shout out to everybody who's watching. If you're just joining, hit the like button, share the live. So so that's where things are at. I was very, very glad to see the notice, again, for some people, it's like new case manager. When I saw that a couple days ago, I was like, ooh, good, good. Something's coming, something's coming. And here we have the something. Calendaring is, I'm just checking my email because a bunch of dockets are moving quite swiftly today. Um, That's what's happening, okay, okay. Major win on the, gambling lawsuit in the Eastern District of Virginia. That is going to arbitration with just 2 people, um, and I don't think they'll be able to justify not being able to settle it in arbitration, um, so, yeah, that's a big blow to the people who brought this lawsuit and their law firm that was clearly hoping to get a class action certified, but that ain't gonna work. Thank you, beautiful. Appreciate you. One proud Glamma. Good to see you, beautiful. So I look forward to, what comes next in any of these cases. And I'm quite certain that folks are going to continue to file these gambling lawsuits in every freaking district in the United States of America until one of them breaks through and is certified as a class, or until everybody has exhausted all of their options and none of them are. And won't that be disappointing? Because gambling is illegal and they should not be allowed to do this nonsense. So Yeah, I was very disappointed to see that. I know for a lot of people, it's like, "Oh, the Drake and the botting and the" I am very interested in that. It's a secondary focus of mine. I mean, I do want to know at this point in time. The allegation has been made so much, he pokes fun at the allegation and all of that, but I want to know unequivocally if these people have been moving money for the purposes of botting, and don't flood my comments with such and such on the internet said this, such and such on the internet said that. Such and such posted a video showing how they would do it or how it's done. I've seen all of that shit, and none of it is concrete evidence, okay? None of it. So, don't tell me about none of that stuff. I've already seen it. It does not rise to the evidence of proof. I mean, rise to the standard of proof that links all of these things together as they are alleged in these lawsuits. That we know that there are public records on the moving of money. What happens after that? We don't have records on that. We have a bunch of pick-me's, right, on the internet and an audience that isn't, unfortunately, intelligent enough to understand when they're being played. I'm not Boo Boo the Fool, and I'm not one of your little friends. So, I'm still waiting. Thank you. Beautiful. Appreciate you. Yeah, it's a fact that those things exist. It's not a fact that they're proof. There's a difference. There's a difference. So, man, trials and lawsuits and criminal this and civil that, and, it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. Yeah. So, we'll see what happens. Okay? We'll see what happens. I know some of you gonna dip, and shame on you. I hope that you hit the like button on your way out if you didn't hit it on the way in. It is a wonderful and free way to help the channel and keep all of those, Drake Biscuit Head related updates coming to you. Okay? Okay? Live and in real time. Child, anytime I see an email that says Graham v. UMG, I drop everything. It doesn't matter what it is. I drop everything to see what is going on and to bring it to you as quickly as possible. So you got a twofer. You got an update on the one of the gambling lawsuits, and we have an update on the oral arguments. Yeah. Hugo Garcia says if Drake doesn't do a stadium tour, then that does shed some light that whoever makes these tours sees data that they can only do arenas versus stadiums. I mean, yeah, what did we read? What were we reading? Oh, we read RBX's amended lawsuit. He clowned the piss out of Drake, talking about Drake's ticket sale numbers and how the math ain't mathin' when it comes to his streaming numbers compared to ticket sales was pure clowneration, hateration in the dancery all the way, all the way. So, yeah, I don't think there is an artist who knows their metrics more than Drake. And I thought that even before the allegations, just because of how reliant he is upon social media interactions and the bumps that his products get from his antics. I don't think there is an artist on the planet who understands their metrics more than Drake so that he can manipulate them. IMO. IMO, okay? Get way too, way too chronically online to not. Hateration in the dancery, baby. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. So, yes, if you have been following along the other half of the Biscuit Head Brigade on this thumbnail, especially if you're a member, I've been doing special edits just for you, just so you can stay in the know, cutting it down to the bare necessities to keep you in the know in an entertaining way. Let me say, I like those edits. I'm pretty proud of them. So the first one that we read was motion to dismiss for lack of a true threat. Yes, we were talking about Comey's seashells by the seashore criminal prosecution. Okay, we read that. I carved up a nice little special edit for you. Then, as I said earlier, the other morning, starting at 6:45 in the morning, we read one of the most batshit documents I've ever read in my life. But I was speed reading because I had other things to do, so I didn't have time to, like, revel in it, you know what I mean? But it's one of the most batshit crazy things I have ever read that the government has done to somebody, period, period. And it is probably, I'm gonna say, the first time in American history that a private citizen has better lawyers than the government that is prosecuting him, because all of his lawyers used to work for the government. But if you don't know the tea, James Comey filed a motion for what is called a Franks hearing, challenging 2 warrants that the FBI got for him and his wife's electronic devices and related accounts, okay? One of the things that was central to their allegations and central to getting the warrants, in which they misled the courts, I mean, blatantly, was saying that because James Comey used to be a prosecutor in New York and prosecuted mafia cases, that he well knows that 86 is a mafia slang term mean to kill. They poured over James Comey's cases. They poured over transcripts, could not even find a reference to 86. They went to a made man and a killer who James Comey had met with several times when he was a prosecutor. This is back in the early 90s, prosecuting the mafia in New York. They went to a fucking killer to ask him if he had any recollection of James Comey, conversations with James Comey about this term and killer. And dude was like, no. Then they asked him, well, who else should we talk to that would know? And he said, oh, former prosecutor, former judge John Gleason. John Gleason is the person. You get something from John Gleason. This is a killer telling the FBI, if you can get John Gleason on record saying that James Comey knew that 86 meant to kill, you don't need any other evidence. You're golden. John Gleason filed an affidavit with the defense. Said, I don't know James Comey. We were competitors. We worked in different districts. We were both prosecuting the mafia. I didn't really like him. I ain't been in his presence or spoken to him since 1994. But the very motherfucking second I found out he was being prosecuted for this shit, I called his daughter at her law firm and said, what can I do? Because I, and I alone, am an expert on mafia jargon about murder. He said this shit would be laughable if the government wasn't trying to strip somebody's liberties and accuse them of threatening to personally kill the president of the United States. They went to a killer. And the killer said, this is your man. And this man said, Let me holler at the defense team. Here's my affidavit. All of the things that the FBI did to manipulate the court into signing off on those warrants, somebody is either gonna go to jail, they're gonna be sanctioned to high heaven, or they're gonna lose their bar card, or all of the above. I can't wait. I can't wait for the Franks hearing, because at a Franks hearing, you get to put people on the stand and ask them questions. You get to ask this man, you get to ask person one, the former friend who hated James Comey and tried to help the FBI come up with some kind of probable cause. You get to ask the killer. Hell, you get to put the FBI case agent on the stand. What are they going to do? Plead the fifth? I can't wait. I can't. I can't wait. I can't fucking wait, chat. Hit the like button. Share live. Game Joa says, I was 1 year old in 1994. Well, I was 1 year away from having my first child in 1994. So, yeah. So now we have, let's see if I can find it. I got so much shit on here. Let me get rid of some things. We talked about Drake, so I can get rid of him. Drake! This shit is just crazy. All right. We are in the Eastern Division of the Eastern District of North Carolina. Aside from the, reaching out to a made man to try and get him to, say something bad about James Comey, I'm still stunned that James Comey, I think it was very smart, but I'm still stunned that James Comey called the police on himself after he posted that photo. Oh, it's hilarious. Okay, so now we have moved on to James Comey's motion to dismiss for selective and vindictive prosecution. Okay? They are flooding the docket with everything that they possibly can. And for funsies, my prediction is James Comey's going to win every time. Every single time the government tries to charge him with a crime, he's not even going to go to trial. It will be dismissed for one reason or another. The first time they tried it, it was dismissed because Lindsay Halligan, that little Pop-Tart who was illegally installed, they said she was illegally installed, and therefore they threw out the case with prejudice, so it could not be refiled because she was clearly installed, just to secure that indictment wherein she lied to the grand jury. And that's the other thing that James Comey has filed. Glad that I am reminding myself. In this case, he has filed a motion to pierce the grand jury proceedings because it is highly likely that, just like they misled the first grand jury on what the law is, that they have likely misled this second grand jury on what the law is in order to secure a signature, because ain't no motherfucking way that posting seashells on the seashore constitutes a true threat to imminently murder the president who's 7,000 miles away on a different continent in a different country. No. Well, there's going to be movies. There's going to be movies and documentaries and Donald Trump is going to be the most talked about president for a very long, 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 long time. One of the most talked about and one of the most studied, one of the most documented presidents ever, ever. All right, everybody, rev up your engines now. Let's get warmed up. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Get your stretches in. Here we go. My shoulder been bothering me, so this chair is not the most comfortable. We're not going to read every single aspect of this document. It's 54 pages. We've been through a motion to dismiss for selective and vindictive prosecution before with James Comey and the government, but we're going to get through most of it, okay? The First Amendment forbids the government from retaliating against individuals for their protected speech, and established due process and equal protection principles bar government officials from using criminal process to exact retribution against their perceived personal and political enemies. The indictment in this case violates those constitutional rules. The exhibits that James Comey attached to this motion to dismiss for selective and vindictive prosecution are numbered A through QQ. A through QQ. And if you're wondering how that works, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, B, C, C, D, D, E, E, F, F, and so on and so on and so forth. If you get past the doubles, A, B, 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 C, 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 but he went A through QQ. He's got a lot of exhibits. I would bet my bottom dollar. Matter of fact, let's scroll back up. Let's go through the table of authorities, okay? The cases that James Comey cites in this motion. I bet you he cites his own cases. Let's see. Oh, Goodfellas Inc. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see. Yeah. Trump versus IRS. He cites that case. How fascinating. United States versus Abrego Garcia. United States versus Abrego Garcia. United States versus Adams. United States versus Armstrong. United States versus Avenatti. Remember that lawyer? United States versus Bundy. United States versus Comey. Thank you, beautiful. Appreciate you. We're almost to the goal. Fantastic. Yeah, I know. I know. I know. Y'all keep saying that. I appreciate it. Well, we'll get there at some point in time. First of all, I got to figure out what the chair is that I need. So, yeah. But thank you. So, yeah, there he is right there citing his own case. All right. And a bunch of others that we are at least peripherally familiar with. He cites the Constitution. Do we think he cites the Federalists? Let's see. Oh, he cites Donald. Cash Patel. Glenn Thrush is hilarious. He cites himself again. There's a lot of table of authorities, boy. I don't know if I saw the Federalist in there. All right, let's get back to it. May 2025, Mr. Comey posted a picture on Instagram of seashells on a beach. Hold on, I need to rearrange myself here. Stretch my shoulder. Okay. arranged in a pattern of 8647, a familiar slogan used to oppose President Trump. The following day, President Trump announced on television that Mr. Comey's post meant assassination, and he made clear his desire that the Department of Justice bring criminal charges, stating that Mr. Comey did not deserve leniency because he was a dirty cop. That same day, the Secret Service knowingly conducted illegal electronic surveillance of Mr. Comey at the request of a high-level DOJ official and instituted a new policy effectively immediately to treat the phrase 8647 as coded language for threatening the president. Ultimately, the DOJ secured an indictment alleging that the social media post constituted a true threat to kill or harm the president. This reminds me that in the Frank motion, we also learned that the night that James Comey posted the photo, he did a telephone interview with the Secret Service, and they requested, instead of going to a local FBI field office, that he go all the way to Washington, D.C. for an in-person interview the next day. So him and his wife get in the car, and they drive from North Carolina to maybe if it was D.C. or Virginia. Either way, they're driving back, to either DC or Virginia to do an in-person interview with the Secret Service, and they're being surveilled by the Secret Service the entire way, including when they stopped to pay their respects at their dead child's grave. They're being followed as if they present a true threat to the president when he's 7,000 miles away on a different continent in a different country. This is the second indictment that the DOJ has obtained against Mr. Comey in less than a year, both at President Trump's direction. In September 2025, President Trump ordered the DOJ to prosecute Mr. Comey for unspecified crimes. A White House aide improperly installed as U.S. attorney swiftly executed that directive, securing an indictment in the Eastern District of Virginia. Yet, because that indictment was fatally defective, a district court quickly dismissed it. The president thereafter fired the attorney general. At that point, acting Attorney General Blanche, who was seeking a permanent appointment as Attorney General, redoubled the government's efforts to prosecute Mr. Comey, this time in the Eastern District of Northern Virginia. The government had initially investigated Mr. Comey's Seychelles post, but that investigation appeared to be going nowhere until Mr. Blanche and U.S. Attorney Ellis Boyle reinvigorated it. The ensuing indictment is not based on a good faith application of the law to the facts. Instead, it effectuates a years-long campaign by the president to use the criminal process to punish Mr. Comey for his protected speech, and because of the president's deep-seated animosity. The indictment must be dismissed under two bedrock legal doctrines. First, the government instigated this prosecution based on Mr. Comey's protected speech and to vindicate the president's animus towards Mr. Comey in violation of First Amendment and due process principles. Second, the government engaged in selective prosecution in violation of equal protection principles. Dismissal of federal criminal charges under these doctrines has historically been rare. That is because for decades, the DOJ's independence and integrity have guarded against the use of the criminal process to punish enemies or settle political scores. The prosecutions of Mr. Comey mark a sharp break from that tradition. Ample objective evidence, much of which comes directly from government officials' own public statements and admissions, establishes that the president's animus towards Mr. Comey led to this vindictive and selective prosecution. The proper remedy for the government's constitutional violations is a dismissal with prejudice. But at the very least, the court should allow for discovery and an evidentiary hearing into the government's decision-making process. And it should require the government to present objective evidence justifying this prosecution. Okay, and then it goes back through a statement of facts, Comey's, history. On May 9, 2017, President Trump fired Mr. Comey as FBI director, saying that this thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. Thereafter, the DOJ and FBI investigated whether Mr. Comey had committed wrongdoing during his tenure as FBI director, and all investigations concluded with no charges against him. August 2017, the DOJ and FBI initiated Arctic Haze, an investigation into whether Mr. Comey had illegally disclosed classified information to the media through Daniel Richman, a Columbia Law School professor and former FBI special government employee. The government ultimately concluded that there was not sufficient evidence to criminally charge any person, including Comey or Richman. Additionally, March 2019, then Attorney General William Barr appointed John Durham as special counsel to review the FBI and DOJ's handling of investigations into alleged connections between Trump's 2016 campaign and the Russian government. As part of the investigation, special counsel Durham scrutinized whether the FBI had mishandled the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Although the final Durham report offered critique of the FBI's investigative standards, it did not find that Mr. Comey or any other senior FBI personnel violated any federal criminal statutes. And then it goes through the fact that as a private citizen, Comey has been criticizing Trump's conduct in office while President Trump responds with extreme vitriol. On April 15, ABC News released portions of an interview with Mr. Comey in which he compared President Trump to a New York mafia boss, calling him untethered to truth, unethical, and morally unfit to be president. Mr. Comey also describes President Trump as a person who sees moral equivalence in Charlottesville, who talks about and treats women like they're pieces of meat, and who lies constantly about matters big and small. Trump posted numerous tweets displaying his personal animus towards Mr. Comey. He called Comey a proven leaker and liar and a weak and untruthful slimeball, stated that Comey should be prosecuted. Go through a bunch of other things he said. Back into the Russia stuff. Around 2018, Trump began exploring the possibility of using his official powers to retaliate against Comey. John Kelly, President Trump's former chief of staff, has publicly stated that President Trump expressed a desire to deploy the FBI, DOJ, and IRS against his critics, including Mr. Comey. When Kelly opposed deploying the IRS against Mr. Comey, he recalled President Trump stating that Comey was writing negatively about him and that he didn't want Comey making money. And this goes through when his security clearances and other people's security clearances were stripped after they were critical of the president. Pre-election advocacy against him. Since 2025, Trump has installed his former personal lawyers and advisors as high-level officials in the DOJ. He has then publicly and repeatedly prodded and directed those officials to investigate and prosecute his perceived political enemies, including Mr. Comey. And then they get to the post. He posted it. He took it down. He posted why he took it down. Again, Secret Service interviewed him by phone that night. He did go to Washington the next day or within 2 days. From that point forward, high-level DOJ and White House officials, including the president, involved themselves in the investigation. That is fucking terrifying. The president of the United States is involved in an active investigation against you. The president of the United States. Sorry, more docket updates. There's a bunch of crap on Andrew Tate and his brother. Oh, baby, you're late. We already covered that. It's quite bad. It's quite bad. It's quite bad when you've got the president of the United States. This isn't about what the term is known as. It's what it has been redefined as. When you've got the president of the United States as the source that the government cites for the meaning of the term 8647. And then they also cite Rudy Giuliani, who went on his radio show after James Comey's post and said, because Rudy Giuliani also used to be a prosecutor of the mob in New York. He backed up Donald Trump and said, "Oh yeah, that's a common term. James Comey absolutely knew that that was a mob term for kill the president because I, also a former prosecutor in New York in this context, know that it was." Then they changed the policy in the DOJ to define 8647 as known lingo for a true threat against the president of the United States. So when people say, black people stay home. Oh, this ain't got nothing to do with you. Oh, no, this ain't got nothing to do with us. So this has absolutely every fucking thing to do with us because this system disproportionately impacts us. And we are getting to watch in real time how they change the rules, how they flout the laws, how they fucking lie on documents submitted to a court under oath, how they interview people, then completely misrepresent what those people said in interviews, put that in official documents for warrants, for charges, how they misrepresent the law to grand juries. This has absolutely everything to do with us. Because this is going to be our opportunity if we don't die. This is eventually going to be our opportunity to change how these things are conducted in our own lives. If the federal government has so royally fucked off their integrity of the courts and cannot be trusted as an independent and fair authority on the law in the presence of a grand jury, then clearly they cannot be the only ones in the presence of a grand jury. That's bedrock practice that the federal government is giving every justification to break and change. There's never been a grand jury process where there's a defense attorney in the room arguing against what the government is saying. There's no judge. There's the prosecution, there's the stenographer, and there's the grand jury. And in more ways than one, not just in the James Comey case. The former Olympian who they say destroyed the reflecting pool, he is trying to pierce grand jury because they're like, the math ain't mathin'. We need to know what the government told the grand jury the law is, because they're literally going into grand juries and lying about what the law says so that they can get a signature on an indictment. That's a regular dude just living his life. Touched the reflecting pool, is facing felonies. They're lying about people who they're trying to deport. Misrepresenting evidence, misrepresenting facts, misrepresenting witness and victim statements. Okay. Thank you for coming to my Henrietta Lacks talk. Okay, behind the scenes, the Secret Service was closely coordinating with the DOJ and the president himself. The Secret Service sent frequent updates to Air Force One in response to direct requests from President Trump, who wished for an update in advance of speaking to the press. A Secret Service supervisor who was asked that night about conducting electronic surveillance of Mr. Comey on his drive back to Washington the next day made clear that it was legally a bad idea because there was no belief of imminent danger to life to justify the warrantless surveillance. Another agreed that it was legally questionable, but indicated they might do it anyway. The next day, the Secret Service conducted that surveillance following a request by the number 3 person at the DOJ as Mr. Comey and his wife returned to Washington, including as they stopped to visit the grave of their dead son. They are solely doing this to harass this man. They don't give a shit about the validity of the case. They have decided by any means necessary, are we going to get him charged? That means misleading judges, lying about witnesses and evidence, omitting witnesses and evidence so that we can get warrants, so that we can get charges. And then in the process of that, we're also going to do a bunch of illegal shit at the direction of the president or his lackeys. The president of the United States should not be asking for updates on a case. That shouldn't be happening. You're the president of the United States. Would you do your fucking job? You piece of shit. I digress. May 16, President Trump stated on television that Mr. Comey meant assassination. It's a terrible thing. And that if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was leniency, but he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. On May 17, President Trump again accused Mr. Comey of being a dirty cop. Donald J. Trump, Truth Social. Less than 2 hours later, the Secret Service instituted a new policy, effective immediately, to code 8647 as a threat to the president. Let's remember, there is a Republican who created a political action committee called 8647. There's merch sold everywhere for 86, whoever, 44, 45, 46, 47. Okay, there's probably merch on the way for 86, 48. We don't even know who the hell it is yet. They decided after the fact to code it as a known true threat to the life of the president. The exhibits on this are A through QQ. Like, the exhibit list just goes and goes and goes and go. I mean, it's the longest single exhibit list that I've seen on a docket so far. And we've gotten into some doubles, but not as far as QQ. Not as far as QQ. They put everything they could think of that was justified onto the docket. But by day's end, oh, this is interesting. Okay. Less than 2 hours later, the Secret Service instituted a new policy effective immediately to code 8647 as a threat to the president. By day's end, the policy needed to be rolled back. The policy resulted in so many potential leads that a Secret Service assistant director stated the need to return to business as usual, which required actual threatening language. On May 18, Director Patel attacked Mr. Comey for having supposedly bastardized the FISA process and lied to the American public while serving as FBI director. Director Patel also claimed that Mr. Comey's beachside venture had inspired copycat posts. People are popping up on social media because Mr. Comey thought it was funny to go out there and make a political stand. And Director Patel revealed that the FBI had opened other investigations involving Mr. Comey. Less than a week after Mr. Comey's post on May 21, an assistant U.S. attorney from the Eastern District of North Carolina wrote to a Secret Service agent regarding Mr. Comey's Seashells post that I've been ordered to open this case in the Eastern District of North Carolina. Around that same time, then Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's deputies were also reportedly pressing prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia to open an investigation of the post. Although the Secret Service had been the first to investigate and even surveil Mr. Comey at a level of surveillance that some agents said they felt was overkill, it quickly decided against opening a full investigation. Eventually, in October last year, the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Eastern District of North Carolina asked the FBI to open an investigation, and the FBI, of course, naturally said okay. This goes back to more of the history of what was said by Trump publicly after it was reported that this investigation was underway. They put something in here about Comey's daughter being fired as a part of retaliation, and there being no justification for her termination. She has an ongoing lawsuit against the government for that. There was an investigation in the Eastern District of Virginia. They went back over a bunch of shit from like a decade ago, and they didn't find anything. This goes back to that Siebert dude who resigned, right? They were pushing Siebert to file charges. He was resistant to that. He resigned, and then they put in Pop-Tart Girl. And this is after he posted what was probably supposed to be a DM to Pam, but he posted it openly on social media, directing her to charge him, Letitia, James, Adam Schiff, a couple other people. The fact that he celebrated that initial indictment, blah, 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 blah. They're definitely going after Ellis Boyle because here comes his name again. Halligan, the Pop-Tart, received assistance in her prosecution effort from Ellis Boyle, installed 2 months earlier in North Carolina. After no career prosecutors joined Miss Halligan's prosecution, Boyle loaned 2 of his office's more seasoned prosecutors to Virginia. So that's where they came from. At least one of these prosecutors was investigating Mr. Comey's social media posts while working in the Eastern District of North Carolina. They are really putting the pieces to fucking together. So the first indictment was dismissed because of the Pop-Tart. And then that brings us to the current case. Pam was fired. What's his name was elevated and told that this was his dress rehearsal for the job. So, Todd Blanche created a special position within the DOJ for Joseph D. Genova, a longtime Trump lawyer who had previously advocated for Mr. Comey's prosecution. I wonder if that dude is involved in the Tate brothers. There's a Tate lawyer who works for the administration. Anyway, Mr. Blanche put Mr. DeGenova in charge of investigating a supposed grand conspiracy against President Trump involving Mr. Comey. Previously, Pam Bondi had gotten in the way of those efforts. So while they were trying to prosecute him on the first case, they were already working on how can we prosecute him for the seashells. On April 28th, U.S. Attorney Boyle followed Mr. Blanche's instructions and secured an indictment of Mr. Comey based on his seashells post. And of course, they already have motions about all of that. The government implied at a press conference soon after announcing the indictment that they had, rest assured, it's not just an Instagram post that led to someone getting indicted. Yeah, it was an FBI agent lying or lying by omission to a judge, and then a prosecutor lying or lying by omission to a grand jury. So, having a case dismissed on the grounds of vindictive and selective prosecution is an extremely high bar. But they say the indictment should be dismissed with prejudice on both vindictive and selective prosecution grounds. At minimum, objective facts justify discovery. Again, let's put some people on the stand. So these are a couple ways that they are now going after people, right? Lack of a true threat motion to dismiss doesn't have anything about discovery that I recall. But the Franks motion, that's putting people on the stand. This motion to dismiss, at the very least, let's do an evidentiary hearing. That's also putting people on the stand to testify under oath, under penalty of perjury. They're not playing around. So the Constitution prohibits vindictive prosecution, and they go through a bunch of stuff on that. They go through the fact that there's objective evidence that establishes that the government vindictively prosecuted. The president harbors genuine animus towards Mr. Comey, including because of Comey's protected speech. I'm not going to read this because, in one way or another, we already have. But they just say straight up that this is an engineered prosecution. It's not real. It's not based on a real true threat. That it is purely vindictive and selective. And they go through and argue what the bar is, and just like they argued with regards to the Lindsay Halligan case, um it it isn't required for Attorney Boyle or any of the attorneys to themselves harbor genuine animus towards Mr. Comey. The thing that matters is that they are acting at the behest of somebody who does have true animus. And they say Mr. Comey would not have been prosecuted but for President Trump's animus. Yeah. Yeah. They're citing the IRS case, which I know is gonna piss them off. They're citing the IRS case. A district court recently noted the unusual influence over the DOJ wielded by President Trump, citing Trump v. IRS. That case is still going because the government refuses to put in writing that the slush fund is dead. And the judge isn't going to let the case go and is going to try and do everything possible to prevent that fund from coming into existence. So that's going to piss him off. His animosity is so deep that he went after Comey's daughter. There's proximal connection to Donald Trump's public statements and posts, and then the DOJ taking action on something that they otherwise would not have taken any action on. Federal officials acted irregularly across the course of this investigation. The Secret Service changed its policy to newly treat 8647 as a threat. Secret Service agents were also ordered to conduct unlawful surveillance of Mr. Comey and share their interview notes with the president. When the Secret Service declined to open a full investigation, the DOJ instructed the FBI to pick up the baton, which Director Patel eagerly did. The FBI acted irregularly too. When the FBI applied for search warrants, long after the social media posts, those applications distorted the facts of the case. That's putting it lightly. The government also failed to install effective screens for attorney client privilege again, resulting in the seizure of communications between Mr. Comey and two of his longstanding attorneys. The suspect timing and conduct of this prosecution and the events that catalyzed it support the conclusion that some motive besides legitimate prosecutorial interest drove the decision. The inference is clear. The newly installed political officials in the DOJ strove to accomplish what their predecessors could not, namely, effectuating the president's desire to punish Mr. Comey. And then they go, I think the previous one was selectiveness, and this is vindictiveness. So much of the same things, but just argued to cover vindictiveness. And, what they say is a clearly established pattern of vindictiveness by the DOJ against James Comey, but then they also cite the Abrego Garcia case, where after an evidentiary hearing, the court held that the government had failed to rebut the presumption of vindictiveness and dismissed the indictment against Abrego Garcia. And then they go through a couple other cases, of which there are several. They say the Abrego Garcia case is instructive. That's gonna piss them off, and I just love that. I really do. On a Friday, I love that for them. The President Trump has directly admitted that the government is prosecuting Mr. Comey for an impermissible discriminatory purpose. Because he can't shut the fuck up on social media. The government has declined to prosecute similarly situated individuals, and they are on the record for that as well because they have been asked by reporters. So, what about this person? What about this post? What about the merch on various websites? What about this? What about that? And they're like, no, we're not going to prosecute for those. Although they did initially threaten to prosecute anybody who reposted Comey's post. They had to let that go too because people were like, oh, for real? Bet. And then a bunch of fucking people reposted it. So they go through and, argue a bunch of things, public statements by a bunch of different people inside and outside of the Trump administration about the situation. In some, no distinguishable legitimate prosecutorial factors might justify making different prosecutorial decisions with respect to Mr. Comey. The prosecution is in bad faith. The proper remedy is dismissal with prejudice in order to dissuade the government from doing this again or doing it to other people. They need to not have the ability to refile this case. and they go through and address government misconduct as the merits for dismissal with prejudice, because they are very clearly alleging government misconduct in this case. And they say, if we don't clear the bar on on vindictiveness and selectiveness, we want a hearing. We know what these motherfuckers said in documents. What are they going to say when they're on the stand? So, whew. Yeah, they pierced attorney-client privilege for the second time. So, in that timeline, you'll recall it go back to about 2017, 2018, where the DOJ opened an investigation to determine if James Comey had leaked information to a Columbia professor and somebody who was also James Comey's lawyer. So that was also electronic devices, right? You're supposed to have a filter team that makes sure that anything that is, like attorney-client privilege does not get filtered into the team that is investigating the case, only the things that are relevant. And they did not do that. So they had to, Comey and his lawyers had to claw back a bunch of stuff, take the court take the government to task through the courts on this constant problem of so then what happens is when the first prosecution of Comey comes up years later, the FBI knows they have this information. But instead of getting a second warrant, right, and going to the court and saying, "Hey, listen, we already have gathered this information from a previous um investigation. We want to apply it now to this." Right? They didn't do that. They just went and opened the boxes, right? And started rifling through it and seeing what can we find here to use to prosecute him in the lying to Congress case, right? And in the process of that, they used or exposed witnesses to attorney-client privileged information. So they were, poo-pooed for that. You're not supposed to do that. They wound up not being able to use that information and got, a directive from the court, like, you're not supposed to be using that information. You're supposed to be filtering that information. They did it again on this case. They've already had this information, right? They just keep going back to the files, flipping it open, fuck the filter team, fuck what's attorney-client privilege, and using it and then exposing it to other people who are working on the case or have some kind of access to or involvement with the case. So, they're gonna get the shit knocked out of them for that. Because this is the third time, and you can't say that it's not intentional. You can't say you didn't know. The FBI knows they're not supposed to do that, and you keep willfully doing it. You keep willfully doing it. And as a matter of fact, here's the thing that's fucked up, is after one of the times they did it, the person whose records they are, right? The Columbia professor, at one point in time, I believe lawyer for James Comey, he got a protective order from the court, barring the FBI from doing it again. They did it again. They are just using their power and every mechanism of their power to violate a private citizen's rights across the board. They do not give a fuck. The only thing they care about is Donald Trump said, do this, and we're going to do it by any means necessary. Let the chips fall where they may. Well, I get one of those chips could be your bar card. One of those chips could be your liberty. Because IMO, the people who are working this case their toes are on the line of committing crime. Their toes are on the line of committing crime in order to gather the evidence, if you can call it that, gather information to manipulate as evidence to justify search warrants, to justify illegal searches and seizures of information, to justify surveilling, to justify charging. They're right there on the line. And so if he is successful at getting a hearing where he can put people on the stand, his lawyers are going to have some questions and a judge is probably going to have some questions too. I want it. I want it. I want it. I'll even titty shake for it. Yeah. I don't believe that that's true. That's not true at all. Smee says the scariest thing about this is that the only thing that is saving us is the other side's absolute incompetence. That's not true. That is not true. Their stupid people plans have been working, and their stupid people plans explicitly work when they are going after regular people. The cases that we talked about just in looking at that document, those are extraordinary cases where the individuals involved have unusual levels of legal support to fight, to have the time, the resource, the experience to know what do we need to file? What is the sequencing of what we need to file? What do we need to have in hand to be able to argue these things, right? Like Mr. Garcia had a massive legal team because he became a cornerstone, his case became a cornerstone legal case. And so whether it's, the ACLU or whoever, you've got people that are lining up, right, to bring their full awareness of the law and their experience to bear to help you. James Comey is 10 times that. He's got lawyers who are just I volunteer as fucking tribute. What do you need? I'll do the footnotes, dog. I don't even care. This shit is unjust. I will do whatever. Also, he is a lawyer himself. His daughter, brilliant legal mind. But he's got people coming out of retirement. He's got former judges. Then he's got people that are filing the amicus briefs go cray cray. Okay. That is an unusual level of support. Regular people get if they're lucky, they get a federal public defender. And whatever that capacity that lawyer has or doesn't have to work on your case. What are they gonna try and cut to? A deal. Because defense attorneys, especially public defenders, are overrun. They're not trying to win your case, they're trying to get you the best deal possible. So, this DOJ, its willful stupidity and maliciousness is fucking over regular people every single day. The fact that they have dismantled the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ is why in cases like Nolan Wells, we are more likely to wind up with the DOJ investigating these white boys being harassed on the internet than we are them investigating what happened to Nolan Wells. Because that's what the Civil Rights Division is doing now. Whereas before, it was protecting things like, discrimination in against established protected groups of people. Now it's just for the whites. It has a disastrous impact on our lives. And a lot of people think that that doesn't exist because they're not directly feeling that impact. Your neighbor is. Your community is. There is now a massive void for all of us that is being backfilled with weaponization against all of us and our protections. It is a problem, right? Because if a FBI agent is lying under oath, the person or the entity that takes them to task is the Department of Justice. If an ICE agent shoots a woman in the face, That is a violation of her civil rights. The entity that charges that ICE agent is supposed to be the federal government. I could I could be here all day giving you big and small examples just on how the Department of Justice has fucked everyday Americans and made us less safe and less protected. We're less safe and protected at work. We're less safe and protected on the streets. We're less safe and protected in our homes behind closed doors. Kai and the Kittens of Doom. As an aside, I believe you may have posted in the Discord the other day. The chief of police lives in Chicago? No, the chief of police does not live in Chicago because we have an acting chief of police. That biscuit head motherfucker does live in Chicago, and he can kick rocks right back there today. I just needed to say that before I forgot. Thank you, beautiful. Appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Nothing's going to happen to that man. James Comey doesn't spend a moment alone. Period. Nothing is going to happen to James Comey in that regard. He did not move here. He did not relocate his family here. Yes, that is all true. He did not actually move here when he was unfortunately hired as the chief of police, something that I was adamantly against, very vocal about, where I needed to be vocal. Yesterday was just a day of fucking disgust. Let me just, okay, since we're off that, I need to just vent about this motherfucker, Sean Barnes, who is no longer our chief of police in Seattle. As some of you may know, we had a shooting at a festival at the Seattle Center over the weekend. 3 people were killed, 7 injured. The police chief wasn't here because he's never here. He's either at a conference or he's with his wife and kids where he lives in Chicago. This is the second chief of police that Seattle has had, wherein a dumbass group of people have gotten together and selected a motherfucker who thought we were just some little podunk town who needed a part-time sheriff. So he wasn't here when the shooting happened, nor was he close by. Okay. And that has set off a whole big stink because a press conference the night of the shooting was delayed, and the statements coming out of City Hall about why it was delayed appear to have been intentionally misleading. Saying things like, it's not safe to come to the scene, blah, 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 blah. No, it was delayed because the motherfucking chief of police had to get on a plane to come back to his job to be there. And for some reason, the mayor fucking acquiesced instead of just standing in front of the cameras with her goddamn self and an assistant to the chief of police. So they lied. That's next to a situation where a reporter who I am extremely familiar with published a story on the fact that the chief of police is never here. And then another reporter from a different outlet confronted the chief of police about that. And the chief of police stepped to him like he was going to do something to him. And all of that was caught on camera. Then it leaked that he was going to be fired or given the opportunity to resign. And then this is where I really just was like, I'm disengaging from this topic because I'm going to cuss some motherfuckers out. The Black community, apparently, of Seattle decided that they needed to beg for this motherfucker's job. And by the Black community, I mean Black people my age or older who are considerably out of touch and who are at organizations like the NAACP and the this and the that and the begged the mayor not to fire a cop. Begged the mayor, groveled. Don't fire him. He's Black. You know, we got disproportionality in policing and whatnot, and we got this, that, and the other, and we think having a Black police chief means it's going to be better for Black people in Seattle when they interact with the police. Where's the fucking data on that? You have no chips to play. You went and gathered some and then wasted them on trying to save a motherfucker who don't live here, don't give a fuck about here, has not had one positive impact on policing here, and wasn't even here when 3 people were gunned down at one of the biggest festivals we have here on a weekend where violence is presumed. He wasn't here. And you gon' coon for his job? Negro. Anyway, he resigned. He's gone. And we made the goal. Good job, everybody. Woohoo! Oh man, I was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. They need a full-time motherfucker who lives here in the housing we pay for. How about that? How about that? It's 2026. You've been the police chief since 2024. I can understand not moving your children during the school year, but after that, and then you're going to try and go after a reporter. I don't need to explain. Literally, somebody on the former chief's staff, and it's on camera, had to step in between him and the reporter to stop the chief of police for advancing on the reporter. That in and of itself would have taken you out of Seattle, just so you know. We're so fucking hoity-toity about how our officials conduct themselves in public. They didn't even need to be a shooting with 3 people murdered. 20 seconds of you stepping crazy to a reporter and staff needing to cut you off and physically redirect your body, that shit will get you fired out of Seattle. That alone. Oh, you want to be tough? I ain't got to explain nothing. Motherfucker, you're fired. Get out. Ain't nobody going for that. And the fucked up thing is, I'm not really impressed with our mayor. She's not the status quo, so I guess there's that. But I'm not really impressed with that mayor. She should have held that press conference the night of the shooting, whether he was there or not, and let his chips fall where the fuck they may. Period. Don't try and cover for him. Don't try and tell people like, oh, we have to delay this because, we're being told by law enforcement. They weren't being told shit by law enforcement except the chief ain't here. And our city is messy, okay? Our city is messy. I have dealt with this myself. You will have a person on the city council or another elected official or their staff person call a reporter and say, I have the text messages because I was in the text group. I cannot give them to you, but you can meet me for lunch and I can leave my phone on the table. So now there's text messages in the news. And now she's left with that shit over a motherfucker who never moved here, didn't give a fuck about here, and didn't actually ever really do his job. Now you left with his political mess because you tried to cover for his ass. You should have fired him. When he spent 50 of 90 days not here, you should have fired him right then and there. Okay, I feel better now. Let me check the email for any other docket updates. I was so heated when I saw that shit. I was like, this is the worst political strategy I've seen around this in a long ass time. You know what we should be talking about? Instead of, the formal complaints now that have been filed about him with the independent oversight body and what's going to happen to those complaints because he resigned and blah, 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 blah. We shouldn't be talking about that. You know what we should be talking about is how come there's no funding for youth violence de-escalators to be at public events where we know youth gun and gang violence is going to happen. Where's the money for that, Mayor? Because if we had adequate funding and we had those interrupters there, probably wouldn't have happened. I'm going to go ahead and stake my reputation on that because I know this city really well. How come we don't have those de-escalators anymore? Oh, because the police department thought they were too cozy with potential criminals in the community. That's the fucking point. That's the point. That's the point. So we've got one 15-year-old in custody. What did I say? Youth, gun, gang violence. We've got one 15-year-old in custody, one shooter, I think, dead, and one at large. Good job. Good job. Dummy. Accurate. He is the Mayor Adams of the Chief of Police. I can't stand that motherfucker. I'm so glad he's gone. He was interim chief for a while. And he basically got rubber stamped into the permanent position because it's very hard for Seattle to attract a good candidate here. And they keep fucking over the ones that are promoted from within who are from here. So we've got some acting biscuit head now. I don't even give a shit. I'm just like, what the fuck ever. You royally fucked this one up, and switching the talking heads at the top isn't going to be enough. And slotting in one black person for another also isn't going to be enough. I'm thoroughly unimpressed. Boo, hiss, tomao. This was a major fucking test, and she completely fucking failed. So anyway, thanks for letting me rant. One of his lawsuits for gambling is going to arbitration period. Oral arguments for Drake v. UMG are probably going to be in November. So, and we made the goal. So, that's great. Good job, everybody. I was going to read the decision in the Cash Patel lawsuit for $10 million for being called a googly-eyed fuckface or whatever. I was going to read that, but things actually happened on dockets today, so we've got enough. We've got enough for today. Anything else pressing going on that you want to talk about? We got a couple minutes left. AMA. Go easy on me. AMA, go easy on me. I'm looking forward to seeing Spider-Man. I am not so far enjoying Silo season 3, I believe. I'm 4 episodes in. Episode 1 through 3 was really annoying, and I was really disappointed. So much so that I went back to the last book and got that on audio and was like, I need the source material because I don't know what the fuck they're doing. This is ass. Let me see. What else am I looking forward to? I'm probably gonna see the Odyssey again, and I'm legit looking forward to that. Um, I don't know. Nothing else is really immediately striking me. I know there are things, but I just can't think of what they are. Boo hiss. Boo hiss. Um, the government people in the past are really relevant. I'll get to your question in a second, Jamie. The government people in the past are really relevant. If you read the books, it's actually quite riveting, but they've changed so much for the show that they're not anywhere close yet to getting to the actual significance of the people in the past and then how it leads to the current events in the silo. They're gonna have to figure they're gonna have to figure that out, but they fucking haven't done it yet, and it is annoying because they keep trumping up these high drama stakes of like, what happens if she doesn't remember? She remembers. Oh my god, they're trying to kill her. She don't die. And that is not how the story ends. Okay. So if that's not how it ends, that's not how it goes. So, but fucking figure it out and get there. Um, the question Jamie asks is blue wave in November or another shutdown? Do you mean like a government shutdown, like official shutdown, or do you mean like a shutdown of the wave? Do I think that there will be a blue wave in November? Baby, there's already a blue storm happening across the country. And yes, I definitely do think that we are going to see much more of that. But at the end of the day, there are only a certain amount of races that I actually care about. I will cry if Susan Collins is elected to another term. It won't be here in front of you all, but I will cry. I might break something, and I'm definitely going to drink. Okay. That's definitely going to happen. Um, but there are a lot of moving parts right now in between now and November, including Donald Trump filing an emergency petition with the Supreme Court regarding mail in ballot voting. And, that has a pretty significant impact on the SAVE Act as well. So we're teetering in a very dangerous place for the November election. And I'm extremely concerned. I do not want my information being given to the federal government with relation to my vote. I do not want that. And I have a fear of what happens if it does happen. And I think those fears are legitimate. Lily Eternal asks, AMA, do you have a comfort movie or TV show? Baby, I got plenty. Okay. I got plenty. I got plenty. I mean, I love rewatching season 1 and season 2 of Silo. Like, that's very comforting for me. As the chat knows, Aliens is a go-to for me. It traumatized me long ago as a wee lad. And I love that movie. Um Yeah, there are a lot of things that I just like to have on, in the background or yeah, that just make me feel all the feels. They can. They are. I mean, a government shutdown does not have an impact on local elections. So, I don't really give a shit. I've been through quite a few government shutdowns in my day. I've been through the stalemates and the "we won't do this unless you do this, that, and the other." I just need the fucking Democrats to gird their goddamn loins and not cave to this maniac. Period. So, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. They're inept, and the threats that they make. Okay. Nope, not doing that. Hold on. Let me look at the Tate docket real quick. Because I've been getting emails of that shit all night and I haven't looked at it. Oh, I guess this was a couple days ago. Late notices, though. Nothing significant as of yet. I'm still waiting for the UK to put some stuff on the docket, and I don't think I see anything as of yet. But I do. What is this? I'll look at that later. I don't feel like dealing with the Tate brothers. It's Friday. Well, happy birthday to him. Thoughts on Michael B. Jordan Thomas Crown affair? I don't have any. I don't have any thoughts. I saw the trailer and I was like, okay. Mans is making, is that with Prime? Either way, yeah, not surprised, and, good for him, and I'll probably watch it, but I didn't really have, like, a, "Ooh," you know what I mean? It didn't do that for me at all. Children of Blood and Bone. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Got the book back there on my bookshelf. Still need to finish it. Will finish it if I decide that I'm gonna see the movie, which I haven't made up my mind about. I don't care about the author being upset. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, I don't care about the author being upset. Period at the end of that sentence. You did a business deal for the rights of your shit, and the deal determines what actually happens with the content of your stuff. So, if she's not happy with it, I don't care. I really don't. Well, it's not the adaptation I wanted to see. Oh, well. Sorry for you. It's the adaptation the world is gonna get. And if you wanna hate it and hate on it and, hate on the actors in it, hate on the writing of it, you go ahead and do that, I guess. But I don't care. I really don't. Yeah, I I can't be made to care. You know, Upset and throwing just divorce yourself from it. I've never been so disgusted in my life. You were paid a lot of money. So I guess go soothe your disgust wounds with all the coin you got for selling the rights to your shit. Like, I just don't care. I think it's messy and I think it's unfortunate. And I think if anything, she should have come out and been a little bit more gracious. So let me just say, I understand she created the thing. She birthed those characters. She created that world. Obviously, she's going to be extremely protective over it, right? She probably has some, and I mean this all due respect. She probably has some pathologically unhealthy relationships with her and her characters in her mind because she made them. They are her children. She is extremely protective of them. But the moment you sign the rights away, you need to let it go. Okay? And you need to make clear to your book audience that you ain't got shit to do with that. And you can do that in a more gracious way because the energy that is coming from her is like they made it different, to fucking stab her in the heart. Who the fuck is you? Well, I'm the author, and you sold your rights away. Why does that have to be everybody else's problem? Why does that have to be everybody else's problem? Right, like, I can't tell if it's gonna be Waterworld, you know what I mean? I can't tell if it's gonna be that John Travolta movie. Or because it's not fair to see everything, even the best Marvel or whatever, whatever your genre is, even the best, period costuming piece, when you're just getting snaps behind the scenes of stuff, it looks tacky, it looks childish, it looks like, "What is this?" Then you see the trailer and you're like, "Ooh, ooh, okay." I don't know, I'm not willing to make when I see the trailer I will decide from there, do I wanna see this movie? And if the trailer doesn't do it for me, I'm not gonna see the movie. But I don't care what she has to say about she doesn't like it. That's like homegirl who's pissed, who, translated prepared one of the most popular translations of the Odyssey, coming out and talking about, "I would be embarrassed to have written a single sentence in Christopher Nolan's film." Bitch, shut up. Nobody cares. Nobody asked you. And stop insulting people who have no interest in the book, are never gonna read the book, read it, don't understand it. I was saying to my son, I said, the irony of this woman being so upset about the movie adaptation of the Odyssey is the fact that for me, I've read, the Odyssey, the Iliad, and so forth, and seeing the movie is what made me have some aha moments about shit that I had read 20, 30 years ago. But there's no room for that. It's just her on her hoity-toity little golden ass fucking toilet shitting on everybody else's work. Ho, shut up. Nobody cares. Your opinion is irrelevant. Period. It is another who the fuck is you? Ah, I adapted the works into the most popular translation. Okay. And that don't mean shit. It's not a documentary. You know why? Because Homer ain't real. And neither was the Odyssey. So what the fuck are we talking about here? The elitism, straight up, the elitism, the down nosing. Oh, fuck you. You ain't gonna do that. And people love to do that to Americans. Well, if Americans actually read the text, shut the fuck up. I'm gonna stop you right there. Shut the fuck up. Don't care. This is another one. What? Video game example, the author of The Witcher. This is a wonderful example. Novels has never stopped bitching about The Witcher video games. And then you go on to the movie situation. Those are like three different things. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't care. I don't care. People did the same thing on Game of Thrones. People did the same thing on Lord of the Rings, right? You've got this purist, hoity-toity elitist looking their nose down. Well, if you would engage with the original text, the original text is not accessible to me. You know how many fucking appendices you have to read to understand the goddamn Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings and all those other fucking books? I do, because my dad was obsessed with that shit. Obsessed. And I could not wait. I could not wait. I could not fucking wait to tell my dad they're turning the Lord of the Rings into a movie. And the glee on his face, his glee going to the movie theater. He didn't come out like, well, they didn't do that. He was like, that was one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. Based on books that I love. And know inside and out. Like Stephen Colbert back of his fucking hand. Your text is not sacred. Your book is not sacred. The Walking Dead. I mean, there are so many examples of adaptations and, you know, the elitist purists being enraged. And I don't think it's a fair critique, period. Because when you take something and change mediums, you have to change it for it to be able to soar on the medium you intend to present it. Whether it's a movie, television, book, play, song, doesn't matter. You should anticipate that and you should be asking, did they do that well for the medium that it is on now? Because a straight adaptation of the translated text, boring. I don't want to see that in a movie. Boring. Boo. I don't want it. Were there some other things from the Odyssey that I would have loved to see in the movie? Yes, but I'm not running out of the theater like, well, they didn't have this island, so it sucked. No, I accept the movie for what was presented to me. I agree to take that. And evaluate it on its own merits. And that movie is fucking dynamite. Dynamite. Mary Poppins is another one. Oh, no, I don't do white people's perfume. I wear almost exclusively oud. So and usually not an oud made in the United States. I'm just gonna be perfectly honest with you. So I can't give you any I can't give you any recommendations on white people's perfume in Europe or America because I don't know. I agree with this. Yeah. Yeah. So oh, Kimberly, from what you understand, is Black woman owned and operated. All right. Well, see if she got an oud. Does she have an oud? Go for that. OUD. That's how you spell it in most places. So, because yeah, I'm pretty basic. I have 3 different odes, and you know, one of them will do. For one of them is just my daily. The other one is I'ma seduce ya. And the other one is a daily, but I might seduce you at the end, you know? Boo. Boo. He said, Summer Mink by Drake? Maybe? You know what we gonna do to that Summer Mink. We airlocking that motherfucker right on out. There's a contaminant on the ship. There's a contaminant on the ship. Quick. Put your helmets on. We gonna suck all the oxygen out this motherfucker to get rid of it. This is what I'm talking about. I do have a couple of those as well because, yes, I've got one of those around the corner for me. So I do have a couple of roll-ons. They don't have any stickers on them. I don't know what the fuck they're called. I identified them by their color. Yeah. So. Man, Summer Mink is just nasty. All right, y'all. Well, that is it for now. We've had a wonderful 2-hour little sesh together. Lots of information been shared and learned and all of that. I need somebody to crack this nut on the gambling situation. I really need that to happen. As I said, I do think there will be some updates on the UMG docket over the next couple days, so I'll keep you in the loop on that. And, we just keep plodding along, beloved, one day at a time. We just keep plodding along. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful weekend if I don't see you. Talk to you soon. Be good. Peace.